If there's one thing my family loves, it's a good cheese board. And today I'm going to be making my mom a cheese board, actually for Christmas. So I started by running over to Trader Joe's and getting some of her most favorite cheeses. And now I'm going to measure them down to the thousandth of an inch. I realize that cheese manufacturers definitely aren't producing cheese with this much precision in mind. But precision is something that's captivated my attention for a while now. And it's honestly just fun to see the deviations and the sizes of olives and things like that. If you can't tell, I'm a huge nerd. Also, this is going to help a ton when I have to model everything to CNC the cheese board. So the whole idea for this project is it'll be a cutting board, but with a twist. On one side, it'll be a normal cutting board you can use to chop veggies or whatever you want. But on the other side, it's gonna have all these cutouts for the different cheeses. No, it's not the most practical thing, but I think it's fun to make projects like this that are a little obscure and something special. So the first half of this project's pretty standard. I'm just making a normal in-grain cutting board, but then I'll put it on the CNC and cut away all the spots for the cheeses. Now, an in-grain cutting board is better than a normal cutting board because in-grain's a lot harder than the normal grain, and it also is supposedly self-healing when you're using it to chop stuff. Now here I'm just cutting the wood down into square strips that'll eventually make up the body and the pattern of the board. I've also been spending a lot of time at my local makerspace, the Dallas makerspace, and it's nice to have some better tools and a little bit more room than my shed. But in this project I'm going to be going back and forth between my shed and there quite a bit. But now I have all the parts cut out and I can start laying them out and getting ready to do the first of many glue-ups. Now, gluing everything up really was the most time-consuming part of this project. And like I said, you have to do everything twice to get the end grain. But it's nice to remind yourself to relax and kind of enjoy the process. Because doing glue-up, sometimes it's easy to get stressed out. But if you relax and tell yourself you're having a good time, a lot of times you will have a good time instead of just panicking the whole time. So now that I have the first chunk glued up, I can go back to the makerspace and plane everything down to dimension and get ready to cut everything into a bunch of strips that'll eventually make up the cutting board. This really is the main reason why someone wouldn't want to make an in-grain cutting board, because it just, like I said, takes twice as long. But in the end, I think it looks a lot better and it'll also last a bit longer. Now, the pattern I'm going with for this is kind of an offset checkerboard. I think it'll look a little bit more interesting than a normal checkerboard, and also I'm hoping when I CNC everything it looks pretty interesting with all the cutouts. And luckily I made enough parts so I can make two, so I can give my mom this one and then I'll have a second for whoever's birthday I forget next. Now I'm finally doing the last glue up, and it can be tricky to get all these squares to line up properly. I've seen and tried a bunch of different tricks. Some people like to clamp boards to either end to keep everything aligned, but the easiest way I've found, not necessarily the fastest way, is to glue up chunks of each piece and then glue those chunks together. That way you can really fine-tune the alignment to make sure everything's nice and lined up and none of the squares get off. I went and picked up one of these flattening bits for my CNC, and it honestly saved a lot of time because I could just leave everything on the CNC and do it all at once. A lot of the times with cutting boards like this, you need a surface sander or a drum sander or something like that to flatten everything out afterwards. You can't really send it through the planer because it'll literally explode. But this is kind of the way to go, I think, and hopefully I can do some more cool projects with it. To get nice and smooth surfaces on the CNC, the process usually is to do it in two passes. One with a square bit and kind of rough out all the shapes and get rid of most of the material. And then I'll come in with a second bit that's more of a rounded bit, and it'll smooth out everything. I've said it before and I'll say it again, and I just love watching this machine work. I honestly am kind of embarrassed to admit, I just sit here and watch it run for probably longer than I would like. Pulling it off the machine, I was really happy with how it was looking. The sanding, though, was a little bit more of a pain than I thought, just because in grain, especially on a wood like walnut and maple like I'm using here, is a lot harder than the normal grain. So I did kind of sand off a couple thumb tips, but that's part of the process. Now, I've made several ingrain cutting boards at this point, and the problem with oiling them is ingrain just sucks up so much of the oil because it's the, open, porous part of the wood. So this time what I'm trying is I have this booze block oil, which is super thin and will really soak into the ingrain. So I'm gonna do 2 passes of this booze block oil. And why I don't love the booze block oil is because after a few months, it starts to lose its sheen and really needs to be re-oiled every 2 or 3 months. And that's kind of a pain. So after I do these passes, I'm going to come back with this stuff called Odie's oil, which is more of a hard wax finish, and it's really a lot more durable than the booze block oil. I also was really liking how the CNC'd out parts were looking with the checkerboard and how the different squares were kind of making cool shapes as the wood kind of flowed around them. And now it's finally time to try it out with my family. Like I said before, it's not really the most practical thing to use because every cheese is going to be different. And you kind of need these specific cheeses from Trader Joe's, but I still think it's kind of a fun oddity to pull out at parties and show people. The one feature I wish I changed a little bit was that cracker cutout. It held them at the angle and displayed the crackers like I wanted, but it really wasn't enough crackers to serve this amount of cheese with. Anyways, I'm super happy with how this project came out, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. But that about does it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.